Okay, so we're going to start with some of the rationale on why we've chosen to do the exercise selection we are today. We're going to start with the overhead squat. So we're going to have Emily put her arms straight over her head with her arms nice and straight. And I'm going to be observing the kinetic chain checkpoints from her feet all the way up to her hips. Go ahead and do a few. Good. And again. So what I notice here is she's having a tough time straightening the elbows. The knees are coming in a little bit, and I see some eversion happening at the foot complex as well. Go ahead and turn to the side, 90 degrees. Arms nice and straight as you can. And then we're going to have her squat from the side view. Good, and one more time. Good. So what we notice here is we see some arms falling forward, and we also see just a little bit of a forward lean. We're going to go ahead and try to confirm some findings. Face forward again, please, and you're going to be on one leg with your hands at your sides, and we're going to see her try a single leg squat assessment, just going up and down as far as is comfortable. Good, and let's try the other side. Very good. So what we see there is we're confirming the fact that that knee is adducting a little bit, the hip is internally rotating. We're now going to take a look at her static posture assessment. So we're just going to take a look at her straight forward. So looking at her from the side, I'm looking for, is the shoulder in line with the ear, and how is she looking there? I see a little bit of protraction happening in the scapulae back here. So we're looking for some things just to identify where we can be most helpful. Go ahead and have a seat on the table, please. We're now going to confirm some findings on if there's a hip flexor issue or if it's maybe the rectus femoris by having her do the Thomas test. So scoot forward just a little more for me. And we're going to have you lay back and you're going to hug both knees to your chest. And what we're going to have you do is hold on to one leg, and then you're going to extend both hands here. And then you're going to extend one leg off the mat, off the table like so. So what I'm looking for here, I see a nice amount of knee bending happening, but I can slide my hand under her leg here, which is telling me it may be a true hip flexor tightness. All right, that's great. Thank you. So based off the assessment results, we found out that Emily does have a little bit of an anterior tilt and some lumbar lordosis. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a few activation techniques, working on the transverse abdominis, the internal obliques, all of the core stabilization system here. So we're going to start with a very basic exercise. It's a marching exercise. We're going to have Emily bring her knees and hips to 90 degrees. And what we're going to do is we're going to really have her push the low back into the mat nice and firm. So we set that posterior tilt, activating the anterior musculature. We're going to have her slowly bring one leg down, maintaining that 90 degrees of knee flexion. Good. And bring it up nice and slow. One way I like to test and retest that she's actually keeping the tension is I like to put something like a towel underneath the low back and give it some tension. So if I know I can pull on this towel and it's not sliding out, she's stuck in that nice posterior tilt, a little slower, and she's doing a good job of really training the hip flexor and the abdominal coordination. Eventually, we'd like an athlete like Emily to move to something like a hollow body position, where she's still at the 90-90, and she's going to go ahead and lift the shoulders up off the table a little bit. Good, and head back just a little bit. Very nice. Eventually moving into a position where the arms are straight up in the air. Good. And then eventually one arm goes overhead, and she reaches one leg out, all while maintaining that nice posterior pelvic tilt. So this is a good exercise for her for that compensation. So another good exercise selection based on Emily's assessment results of the knees adducting in both the single leg and overhead squat assessment, telling us that the gluteus medius is a weak muscle and maybe the adductor group is a little bit tight, is going to be the modified side plank. So what I'm going to have her do, she's got her elbow right underneath her shoulder, she's got her body turned exactly facing the camera, and she's going to come up onto one knee into a modified side plank, keeping the knee on the ground. And she's going to go ahead and reach this arm up in the air so that we know that she's nice and in the frontal plane in this case. So what this is doing is this is really teaching her left scapula how to work with her shoulder, also how to work with the hips. So this is a great exercise for her to teach how to integrate the whole body into this movement. Now this heel walk exercise I've chosen as an activation exercise for the anterior tibialis. We noticed Emily in her squat was really everting at the subtalar joint, telling us that the peroneal group is a bit overactive and maybe some activation of the tibialis anterior might be beneficial. So we've got her doing this isometric in order to try to improve that compensation. The next exercise we're going to do based off of Emily's internally rotated shoulders and her static postural assessment is going to be an externally rotated horizontal abduction. So we're going to have her reach her arms up to shoulder height. We're going to have her pull the band into her chest nice and slow with a nice squeeze at the top. Really trying to activate the rhomboids and the middle traps. Good, and come on out of that, keeping tension in the band, and she's going to keep that going. So what we're looking for here is that Emily's got a good amount of nice retraction happening in the upper back, arms up just a little bit higher, pulling back, squeezing the upper back and the posterior deltoids while keeping the chin tucked in a nice neutral position, and this should help with that rounded shoulder position. Now the next thing we're going to do is going to be to work on Emily's hip abduction, her gluteus medius and minimus. So we're going to have her do some side band walking. Emily also is a mommy, so it's very functional for her core stability to hold baby. Her name is Reese. So what we're going to have Emily start with doing is standing nice and tall, having the feet face straight forward. She's going to squeeze the glutes, and she's going to stand nice and tall, and she's going to take 5 steps to her left, trying to not rock if possible. 3, 4, 5. Good. And turn that left foot in just a little bit more. And we're going to have her come back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All while maintaining tension on the band. The next thing we're going to have her do is she's going to go into a quarter squat position with the chest up and the core tight. And we're going to have her do the same thing. Side band, walking to the side, really working on the frontal plane stability. Also, in this case, with the front-loaded objects such as the 16-pound baby, she's really challenging her core stability. This should help her with that problem of knee adduction as observed in her assessments. Very nice. Next exercise we're going to do for Emily's hips here is we're going to do a little bit of hip stability. So we're going to have her bend her knees just a little bit. She's going to try to maintain, you can bend them just a little more. She's going to try to maintain that bend in the knee as she reaches back and tries to line her feet up as she taps. So tap the left foot right behind the right and keep going on that side. So by doing this little angle, we pick up a little frontal and transverse plane stability we wouldn't get otherwise. The baby's obviously activating the core a little bit more, and we're really watching the knee. Try to keep that knee bent a little bit and then keep it bent the whole time. And let's see the other side. Go ahead and switch baby to the other side. Make sure we're nice and even. And she's going to line those feet up, and this is really going to challenge her core and her hips to really stabilize for her. Let's see if we can get a few a little quicker. Up, down, all while minimizing the flexion and extension at the knee. Very nice. Now that we've looked at some of the isolation exercises we've used for Emily, we're now looking at some more functional integrated movements. So the lateral lunge is a great selection for getting the abduction, but also teaching the joints how to all work together nicely. So it would be the next step in Emily's program. We're of course looking at her from the side, making sure she's got a nice flat back, a good hip hinge, and she's really driving and pushing off as she goes. So we've also selected scaption for Emily, so we really want to teach the head of the humerus how to move well in the socket. This is a great exercise for the external rotators, the infraspinatus, the teres minor, all of the stuff on the posterior rotator cuff. Also teaching synergistically how the deltoids and the supraspinatus, how to work together. This is a great shoulder exercise, and Emily's showing great control, great range of motion by going just to the level of the shoulders. All right, and the last couple of exercises we've selected for Emily are going to be for her gluteus maximus, based on the anterior tilt that we noticed. So we're gonna have her do baby-led hip bridges. So we're looking here for no hyperextension. Walk the feet back a little bit so the neck is neutral. She's gonna drop the hips. She's gonna drive them up, getting a nice squeeze in the glutes, keeping the hips facing forward. And then finally, we're gonna have her grab her dumbbells. And we're gonna have her do a wide grip row. So she's gonna bend over with a nice flat back, and she's going to do a nice horizontal abduction. Elbows just a little more to the side this way, trying to get good activation of the rhomboids. Also, this is challenging her hip and core stability just to maintain that position. We're taking the lats out of it a little bit by not doing the shoulder extension piece, and this would be a great exercise.
Go.
Here's a snapshot of a few stretches I've selected for Emily. So obviously tighten the chest and the anterior deltoid based on the rounded shoulder position. So we're gonna give her a PNF chest stretch where she reaches the arm straight out to the side, and she's gonna do just a little bit of contract relax action this way. Another good contract relax exercise for Emily is going to be a hip flexor stretch. So a lot of people, when they get down into the hip flexor, they really drive forward into a big anterior tilt. So what I'd recommend for Emily is that she just puts her femur right underneath herself, a nice vertical shin, and I want her to try to set that posterior pelvic tilt, getting a nice stretch here, also activating the glute so she gets a little bit of that reciprocal inhibition, and then she would hold it for about 30 seconds so that she can teach the muscle spindle how to relax. From there we teach her some lat foam rolling inhibition exercises, or stretches if you will. So we'd have her lay on the foam roller, find a tender spot somewhere in the belly of the lat, and we'd have her look for about 30 seconds or more so we get that autogenic inhibition. Finally, if she was tight in the shoulders and the anterior delts, a nice behind the body stretch, something like this, moving that arm into extension so that we stretch the flexors of the shoulder.